Welcome to Product Tank June. I see we've got people from all around Sydney and even Australia, Tasmania, which of course is a completely separate country, and probably other places around the world joining us today, which is fantastic. Now, my name is Benjamin Woods. I will be your host tonight, and I'll start off by telling you a little bit about Product Tank. If you haven't joined us before, we are the largest product community in the world, by product people, for product people. What I just mentioned to Sandy, our speaker today, is this thing started in a pub in London with just a few product people getting together and discussing challenges that they had, and realized, oh, they actually had very similar challenges and they were able to help each other. And it's grown into, well, this massive map today, which is fantastic. We have two things in Product Tank, or Mind the Product. One is the meetups, 200 meetups around the world, and we have the Mind the Product conference and blog. That is sort of our global effort. Now, quick acknowledgement of country, which is what we like to do in Australia. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. And we pay our respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islander people today. If you don't know the history of that, look it up. Good history lesson. Now, if you would like to get involved with Product Tank, just email me if you want to speak. Once we're out of this pandemic, or at least out of this new lockdown in Sydney, then we might go back to hosting events in person as well. And of course, there's a blog you can write on and other things that you can get involved in with Mind the Product if you want to upskill. Now, this thing wouldn't happen without my two fantastic co-organizers, Liam Pietska and Peter Chewy. Thank you so much for all your support, guys, and looking forward to organizing the next one as well. And now let's get to the talk today, which is from Sandra Davey, who is easily one of the kindest and funniest product people you'll ever meet in Sydney. She's been around the product space for longer than most of us. She served on the board of Choice and many other organizations, and has probably done more than a lot of us in this ecosystem to help people understand product. And a lot of the fights that we no longer have to fight because people know the term product management is in part due to Sandy. So very, very happy to have her and to tell us about how we can together evangelize the product mindset, and help other people who are not product managers, how we can get them to think like a product person in 30 minutes, which is an awesome challenge, and one that I'll take upon myself at Burst to see how far we can get. Now over to you, Sandy, and tell us how we can get more people to think like us.
Good evening. Hello. Thanks, Ben. And hello, everybody. It's I'm coming to you from Little Bay in Sydney, New South Wales, and I'm on land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. So for those of you outside of Australia, this acknowledgement of country has becoming really important for us. So I just want to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which is most of Sydney, and acknowledge our elders past, present and emerging. And it's really lovely to be here tonight. I think there's about 45, 50 of you on tonight, and it's going to be quite interactive. So we want to use chat, and also would really love it if you can grab a pen and paper if that's close by. If you've got your laptop, you can do what I need you to do on the laptop, but it's probably more relaxing if you do it with a pen and paper. So if you can grab those now, that would be awesome. It's difficult because I can't see any of you, so I get no feedback. And when you're in a room doing this, you get lots and lots of different feedback. So I'm kind of doing that weird television. I hope to God you're out there and you're still with me at the end of this. So again, thanks for joining. what I wanted to share with you came about. I'll tell you a bit about myself first and then how this talk and this technique came about. I have been in the product community for about 25 years. I was thinking about that earlier today and wondering if some of you perhaps were just born when I started my product career. So I've been a product manager for about 25 years. I've been called everything, including a product manager, but I've been called everything from an executive producer to a customer service officer to a manager to a BA, you name it, I've been called it. But I've essentially done producty things for about 25 years. And by day, I coach and consult in product and agile ways of working. So really trying to think about how do we bring really good product-led practices and disciplines into organizations, both into product teams, but really interestingly, particularly with agile, there's a desire to take product thinking and agile ways of working into other parts of the business. So I'm hoping tonight there are some people here that are not product people. The invitation was to anyone in the business to come and learn how to think like a product person in 30 minutes. I'm going to turn my timer on and see if we can stay within 30. It might leak over a bit, and then we've got plenty of time to have a chat in using the online chat. So the context for what I wanted to do with you tonight came from my second role. So I said by day I'm a product coach and a consultant. That's about 2/3 of what I do. And the other third of what I do is serve as a company director on company boards. Here in Australia, we call them non-executive directors. As Ben said, I served on the board of Choice for 9 years, including 3 years as chair. And I currently serve on the board of Outer, which is a bit geeky, but really important.
Hey, sorry, Sandy, to barge in here. I think you've muted yourself. Next to your avatar, there should be a little microphone.
Yeah. How much did you get that? How much have you got any of my talk?
I think start from the beginning. Oh. We got the intro. And then I think as you started, here we go. Someone has paid more attention than I have. My product managers only talk about lean, agile, and design.
So I just only got apologies, everybody. Can't believe that I muted myself. So did we get what my background, and I'm just starting to talk about choice.
Yes, start there.
Okay.
And it's all good. It's not like we work in IT.
So by day, I'm a product manager, but I also serve on company boards, and I served on the board of Choice for about 9 years. And the reason I was recruited onto the board of Choice is because I'm a product manager, and I have a product background. And so this is great for those of you in the future that may want to serve on boards. We increasingly want people with our backgrounds, with tech backgrounds, digital backgrounds, product backgrounds. And so I was recruited onto the board because I have a product background. And over the 9 years that I served with the board of Choice, I brought a lot of my product-led discipline and product-led thinking, kind of really infused how I approached the work that I did at board level. Many of my co-directors, there are 9 of us, weren't exposed to either product managers or product management, and the CEO had just started, and he was new to the product space as well. And what really helped me at board level was applying techniques that I'd learned as a product manager. So fast forward to earlier this year, my colleague Sarah and I were asked to do something producty for an agile community in India. And we had 30 minutes and a non-product audience. And it allowed me and Sarah to kind of identify the core things that product managers do all the time when they're working. And I realized that it can be distilled down into something quite simple. Every day, us as product people think about what's this thing that we're going to do, to build, to create, who's it for, what problem does it solve, and what kind of value are we creating? We think about users, and I'm going to call them users tonight. They could be customers for you, they could be users, they could be members, but they're essentially users. We think about our users, we think about problems that they have, and we also think about the value that we're creating. And the more I thought about it, the more obvious it became that every person, regardless of where you work in your organisation, you have users. They could be internal customers or external customers, but you are in service of someone. They have unmet needs or problems that need to be solved. And so you, in your role at work, need to create value for that user and value for the business. And so we whipped up this simple deck that we're taking you through tonight, and I hope that you enjoy it. It's pretty simple, but I suppose one of the things that we all, as product people, even me, I forget sometimes that I really have to bring myself back to what's the value I'm creating, what's the problem I'm solving, and who am I solving it for. And I suppose the more I thought about it, I thought if everybody in the business thinks this way, it'll be more satisfying for you folk who are product people. It'll create a connection between the product people and the business people, but it will actually fundamentally help them in what they do as well. So, sound good? All right, let's try it out. Here we go. Before we get going, though, I'm really keen to understand who's here tonight, and I want you to open up the chat window, or I think it's just embedded in your browser. Get ready with chat. I'm super curious. If you're a product person, or you work in a product team, or you work closely with product and engineering folk, I want you're going to be the letters PE for product engineering. Hold those letters close to your heart. If you're here tonight and you are in another part of your organisation, finance, marketing, HR, ops, sales, it doesn't matter, I want you to pick one word that describes the area that you're from. Okay, got that? So now all of you, can you type into chat for me, please? Type PE if you are in product engineering or with product and engineering folk, and type one word that describes the area of the business that you work in if you're not in product and engineering. Flood me in chat, please. Can't be that quiet out there. Ben, you can see the chat. I'm having another audio problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I'm muting myself. Okay, well, in the chat, there's a lot of PEs. There's some talent, there is UX, there is PE and sales. We've got IT, we've got strategy, we've got someone telling me I'm on mute. Thank you so much, Pendula. We've got CSM, we've got UX/product design. More PE. So I think there's a lot of people here keen to see how they can influence their stakeholders around them.
That's fantastic. I can't see the chat, or maybe I've got the wrong part of the window open. Oh, there you all are. Jesus, I've just been a bit of a loser tonight, folks. I can see you all now, right. Ben, what do you reckon, 50-50 or a bit more loaded up on PE folk?
Definitely more PE. I would say 80, well, 70-30, 80-20, something like that. I'm not great with stats.
Product engineering folk, loves of my life, thank you for joining. And for the other people in the business, I'm really happy that you're here. Thanks for coming along tonight. Let's keep going. Here's what I've learned over 25 years. The number one job for a product person is to find the most valuable things to create and deliver. It's the only reason we exist. It should be the only reason we exist. The number one job for us is to create and deliver the most valuable things. And it doesn't matter, I've discovered, if you're in a product role or not. So if you're in ops, you might be working in the call center, or you might be in HR, perhaps you're working on performance development or recruitment. Maybe you're in finance here tonight and you've just done an end of financial year run, or you could be in marketing working on the creation of a new brand asset, or maybe a new digital campaign. Here's the thing that I've really learned over the last 30 years, and it's this: whoever you are, regardless of where you work in the business, your number one job is to find, create and deliver value. In a way, you're exactly like us product people. So here's the first part that I want you to do with your pen and paper or your laptop. I want you to think about the last thing of value that you delivered. Now, remember, you don't have to be in a product team to deliver value. It could be something that was related to a project that you're working on. It could be an initiative, could be a feature if you're in a product team. It's most likely related to a service or a product or a process, or it could be related to people. But think about the last thing of value you delivered. I want you to write that down now, and I'm going to give you 1 minute. Time starts now. What's the last thing of value that you delivered? And I'll put the timer on for a minute, and it's weird because I can't see any of you. So I'm hoping that 1 minute is going to be plenty of time. I want you to think about and write down the last thing of value that you delivered. I'm absolutely convinced that even if you work in sales or HR or ops or finance or marketing, you've delivered something of value. It could be internal too. So value doesn't have to be delivered external to customers or users. It can be delivered, value can be delivered internally to your internal customers. What's the last thing of value you delivered? 10 seconds. And time's up. So I want you to put that aside for the minute and we'll come back to it, yeah? But I want to talk about value. When we create stuff, things of value internally or externally, we aim to realize 2 types of value. And I've got a bit of a picture here. The first is user value, and then we've got business value. I want to talk about user value first. And a popular way for us product folk to think about user value is IDEO's popular Venn diagram. We want to build things that are viable, feasible, and desirable. And user value is created when problems that users have are either solved or a need, an unmet need, for example, is met. That's user value. Then we have business value. And business value is created when business goals are met. This is a simple way to think about business value. It's Dave McClure's pirate metric funnel of acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. Your business, or actually the role that you play inside of your company, may describe value in other ways. McClure's metrics is only one way, but you might describe value in the form of the number of campaign donations if you work in a non-profit, or if you're in government, maybe affecting a policy change, or perhaps you work in an organisation where value is measured in other forms besides dollars. Business value can also play out like this. If you work in what I would call shared services, so you might be in finance, HR, ops, marketing, value could come in a whole variety of other forms too, because a lot of your customers will be internal customers. So value could be something like, if you're in finance, providing information and data for others to make informed decisions from. If you're in HR, your value might be around uplifting talent, or if you're in ops, it might be around streamlining processes. So business value can play out in a number of different types of ways. So we've got 2 types of values in summary there. We've got user value, we've got business value. And here's a simple way to determine value. For those of you in the product industry, you might have come across Miss Awesome Melissa Perry. She's written thousands of blogs and great books, and she's pretty top talent. She's got a really simple way to determine value, and she calls it the value exchange. And there's two sides to the coin. On one side, we've got customers and users, right? And they've got problems or wants or some kind of unmet needs. And by the way, and I'll say it again and again, your users could be internal. So there could be external customers, there could be internal users. So on one side, you've got users. And on the other side, you've got businesses or departments that will create something, a product, a service, a process, or a thing that solves those problems or fulfills those wants or unmet needs. So the customer or the user only realizes value when they get their problem solved or one of their needs fulfilled. Then and only then will they provide value back to the business. So thinking about you and your role in your organization today, every feature you create, any initiative that you take, any work that you do, regardless of the role that you play in your company, should result in some kind of outcome that can be tied back to business value. So questioning all the time everything that we do as product people, and in fact, anyone else in the business, we need to keep questioning everything we do and bring it back to what's the outcome that I'm after that ties back to both customer and business value. And that's how product people think. Two types of value, we want to get both, right? It's great to produce some awesome user value, but if it doesn't drive business value, there's no point, right? And vice versa. Here's a couple of examples. Standard subscriber funnel, like an acquisition funnel. Here's the problem. On one hand, for customers, we've got, let's say we've got dropouts in the subscriber funnel and they're causing increased calls from super unhappy users. We've probably got another side problem, by the way, and lost revenue. But the customer problem is frustration, unhappy, I keep having to call the call center. Let's assume we know what the solution is, and let's presume we've put in an awesome bunch of fixes. We've focused on the biggest 3 pain points in the customer journey. So let's say we fixed it. And from that, we create value for the customer. We have a satisfied customer who does what they need to do with maximum ease. They're in the middle of an acquisition funnel and they just want to get through that as quickly as possible. Remind me to tell you of the inordinate amount of time it took me to get through the JB Hi-Fi cart tonight. So we've got a satisfied customer who's done what they need to do with maximum ease, and in exchange we have business value. We've nailed the acquisition, so we're closer to revenue, and we've got a decrease in call center cost. Here's another quick example. You work in human resources or people and culture team. Currently takes 4 weeks to onboard a new staff member. So the time for them to be effective, to become effective, is slow. Your internal client, whoever you did the recruitment for, loses productivity because their teammate isn't up and running. And you in HR work on repeated manual tasks, taking you away from other important work. So loads of problems there. Let's presume we know how to improve that onboarding journey and we've shrunk it by 25%. So we've cut it from 4 weeks to 3 weeks. Let's presume we've done that. On one hand, you get a satisfied person whose first experience with her company is great, and she's thinking, this is looking good. My time to becoming effective is reduced. Think about the first job you ever had, or every time you get a new job, your desire to become effective is a pretty high driver, right? So we've got some satisfied staff member. In exchange, we've got business value. The time for the staff member to become effective has been reduced. Her manager is happy and HR gets to work on other stuff. So when you think about this value exchange and you think about solving a problem, meeting a need for the right, I know who the user is and I've created value, you can apply this technique to any initiative or any process that you work on. It doesn't have to be a product. You can teach this to your business mates because I've discovered, and as you know, everybody in the company needs to create value. So now that we've absorbed that, I want to think back to our first activity and the last piece of value that you created. I want you to take a look at what you've written down. And here's the first part of 3-part exercise. I want you to think about who the customer was. Even if you're not a product person, you're creating some value. You're creating value for someone, and that someone is internal or external. I want you to write down who the customer was. I'll give you 30 seconds. Time starts now. Who was the user or the customer for that piece of value you created? I'd be so curious to know how many people nominate internal users. Who was the customer or the user for that piece of value that you delivered? And 3, 2, 1, time's up. Okay, hold that. Now I want you to think about the problem that was solved, or what unmet need was met. What was the problem that you were solving, or what need did you meet for that user that you've written down, for that piece of value that you created? I'm going to give you 1 minute. Time starts now. Write that down. What was the problem that you were solving, or what need was being met? Halfway through, what was the problem that was being solved, or the need that you met? I'll get you to bring your writing to a close. Time's up. Okay. Here we go. Last question. You created a piece of value. You know who the user or the customer was. You know the problem or the need that you were meeting. What was the business value that you created? Was it new revenue? Reducing complexity? Was it reducing cost? Maybe improving efficiency? Maybe acquiring new customers? Maybe you're onboarding a new staff member, or doing a 360 review with an existing one. Maybe you were producing monthly financials, or maybe you were ordering stationery. What was the value, the business value that you created? I'll give you another minute. Time starts now. Write that down. What was the business value that you created? Dum-ba-dum-dum-dum. To get a piece of value that you've created and delivered, or just delivered. You know who the customer was, internal, external. You know the problem or the need. And now I want you to think about and write down what the business value was. Improve a process, reduce cost, increase revenue, improve happiness. And I'll get you to bring that to a close. Time's up. So I want to bring this all together now. Our job, regardless of where we are in the organisation, is to create value, no matter where we are. So we thought about the last thing that you've delivered of value, the problem that was being solved or the need that was being met, the customer or the internal user that it was created for, and the business value. They're the critical things that we need to think about. And if, in a way, if you think about, if we don't create value, what on earth are we here for? Existential question, perhaps. So I want to do some reflection now, and I'd be really interested to hear some of your thoughts. Based on what you've heard and done here tonight, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to have a think about this and write down some thoughts to these 2 questions. What did you learn about the last piece of value that you delivered, and what would you do differently next time? What did you learn about that last piece of value that you created, and what would you do differently next time? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Time starts now. Nobody's going to see what you write down unless you choose to share. So it's okay to dig deep, and particularly around the question of what did you learn about the last piece of value that you delivered. If it makes you feel better, in my 25 years, there's been a number of things that I've delivered of no value. Shockers, really. And hard lessons to learn. Okay, 15 seconds to go. And I'll get you to bring that to a close. And I think, Ben, what would be really great now is if we open up chat. But before we do that, I hope it's been a useful exercise. It's a pretty simple approach. Many of you product people might have been asking you to suck eggs, so I apologise. But I think it's really useful to remember to bring us back to why we exist, and that is ultimately to create value. And to create value, we've got to understand who our users are and what problems they have or what needs they need to have met. So thank you. And we did get that done in just under 30 minutes. So that's a pretty simple way to remind us how to think like product people, but also to share it with other folks in the business. So Ben, I might draw it to a close, but perhaps one of the first things that we can do is open up chat. And I'm really interested in hearing from people based on the last question that I posed, which is, what did you learn about the last piece of value that you delivered? Is anyone game to post into chat?
Thanks so much. First of all, that's been an awesome exercise, and I've got a little piece of paper with stuff that I learned from this. But yeah, I love the fact how a product just always boils down to these first principles, and you just need to apply them consistently. Everyone on the chat, yes, either share what you've learned, but also any other questions for Sandy, put them down. We're going to the Q&A part now. I think I'm happy to share first. One of the lessons that I learned is in terms of like value I've delivered. I've done an interview script for a candidate today. I've done a demo that I prepared with a couple of other product managers, a metrics framework for us to stay on track. I realize as a product director, I'm focused a little bit more on sort of stakeholders and delivering functions to the teams in the business. So that's actually been quite insightful. It's like, oh yeah, my role isn't, I always would say, product is about, delivering customer value to the customers and the business. But actually, as a leader, your role is deliver value to the teams inside. So that's been really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we have here? We've got Micah, focus on both customer and focus on value. Tendency to clarify and define the customer value, but how to identify business value, especially when you're improving existing products that are mature. What do you reckon?
It's a really great insight. By the way, Micah, if I'm pronouncing your name right, I love working on mature products. Lots of people love working on sexy new things, but I like mature products, and I like thinking about how do we get the last breaths out of this baby before we have to end of life her. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I wanted to come back to something that you said around internal value. I've noticed I do a lot of agile and product coaching now with business teams, and I have a gorgeous client in Brisbane, and I've been coaching the finance team and parts of the people in productivity team, and it's really opened my eyes up to this painful insight that many people inside of the business, particularly if they're in shared services like finance, don't think that they're doing anything as that's a generalized statement, because they're not generating value directly for an external customer that's creating revenue. They feel like they're not creating value. But actually, when you unpack the work that they do in finance, in HR, in marketing, etc., there is an inordinate amount of value that's been created inside of the business. So I have really loved bringing my product thinking and product craft into business teams. What else have we got? Peru. Great to
you go.
Oh, sorry. Great to reflect back on the value I can add to my teams. Internal, as a product practice lead, it so often gets lost in the day. And I suppose that's just to your point, Ben, about the role that you're playing and requiring that you deliver internal value as well. How many people out there have delivered or doing internal value versus external customer-facing value? Tell us a bit more about that.
We've got another comment. I was going to quickly add a hilarious joke about how most of the world thinks finance people don't actually create value. But of course, we're talking about different people than you're probably working with. We've got something here from Ashok. So value creation is only half the journey in my experience. Humans and enterprises are generally resistant to change at large, and value adoption is the remaining half that creates lasting change. What do you reckon, Sandy?
Can you repeat that? I just missed that last bit. Oh, here we go. As only half the journey, humans in enterprise are generally resistant to change at large. Value adoption is the remaining half. Yeah, that creates lasting change. Oh my God, you've really hit the nail on the head. We could spend hours talking about change and transformation. And I agree. I've spent a lot of time and I'm old enough to have been involved in dozens of change programs and transformations and journeys, and that often much of my experience has been the execution has been poorly thought through, and the execution is often top down, which in my view never works. The most powerful ones I've ever seen are the ones that are smaller and ground up. They take longer, they're more organic, but the smaller, more organic ones seem to be more successful in my experience. Thanks, Ashok.
What do you think about businesses where you just mentioned that are sort of focused a little bit more on solutions rather than problems? Because I think a large part of this exercise has been like making actually sure we understand the need and the value we deliver. But I think every product manager has worked with leaders who think the value gets created when you put this button there that does X. And there's, of course, a large number of things that we do that don't have a button that still add value. And actually, if we boiled it all down to the problems that we're trying to solve, maybe we needed to put a different button somewhere else. But the leaders are convinced that no, this solution is what will provide value. How do you work with those types of leaders?
Oh, look, there's the $64 million question, right? I mean, how many times have you been given the solution? Or better still, the solutions come because someone in the senior executive team has come home, has come to work on a weekend, has a qualitative sample size of 2 kids, and has come up with an awesome idea for a product improvement. It's super difficult, and there's a myriad different ways that we can contend with that. Can I say that sometimes we just have to suck it up, which is really awful, but sometimes the fight's not worth the fight. It depends. There's so many different ways we can think about it. I've worked with a CEO in a really large telco, and we're talking, hundreds of millions of dollars telco, and he would give me a lot of commentary about the homepage design, the color and the placement of the buttons. And I used to sit there thinking, isn't your job to run $100 million business? Let me worry about the buttons. Some of these experiences I've won, some I haven't. And that's probably the first test I would have is this a fight worth fighting? Evidence, the great thing about data that we've seen over the past decade, this intense focus on data and making data-driven decisions, both qual and quant. I think data gives us evidence to tell a story. That can be a really powerful technique. Bringing stakeholders into the journey as well. Often I've found, especially it's hard to make generalizations. I'm thinking of one CEO in particular who I don't think they really minded that we didn't do what they asked. They just needed to be heard. And so there's a very powerful opportunity to give stakeholders and leaders, whoever your stakeholders are in your ecosystem, often it's just simply being heard and taken seriously. They don't really care whether you take their idea and run with it, but the fact that they've been heard. So I think that's engaging in stakeholders and finding mechanisms to enable that they're heard using data, prioritization techniques. There are some really fun games that you can play these days, like Monopoly games, where you give your stakeholders money and let them trade off a bunch of features that they think are really high priority, but it turns out with their $100 they're not. So I think there are a range of different ways that you can take on a lot of feedback, but quietly put a bunch of it in the parking lot. My final comment, actually, I need to share this with you. Humans don't like killing things. It's in our fundamental nature not to kill, right? And I found that with products. Nobody likes end-of-lifing a product. Nobody likes the garbage bin. I've visualized a number of product backlogs over the years, and through the good work that product teams do where we validate and we need to throw ideas away, I've found over the years that nobody likes a garbage bin. And so my throwaway icon now is a parking lot. And it's really weird, isn't it, when you think about it? It's like, these are a whole bunch of shit ideas, man, and we've got to throw them out. But people don't necessarily want you to build the thing or do the thing that they want, but they definitely don't want you to throw it out. So being sensitive and conscious to that and giving people space, but also then just parking stuff in the appropriate place as you work through your product approaches.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I actually learned something there today from my head of engineering. We've got a product which traditionally would be referred to as the legacy product, and the internal terminology actually that we use is it's the legendary product, because it got us to where we are today, and it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of, even in terms of like team motivation inside companies, but just referring to one product that still maybe 100 people have to work on as a legacy product, you just create yourself a motivational problem there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's really valuable. And I want to pick up on that because I've worked on a lot of, legacy, but I remember coming back to Choice, and there was a moment there where we were creating quite a sizable investment fund, and this is a non-profit, right? So sizable investment fund was pretty big for us and pretty risky. Our core revenue was parked over here, but it was our existing legacy products, or our core products, were 98% of our revenue, right? And here we are over here with this sexy new innovation kind of program. And I had a profound realization of just how valuable and important anyone who worked in the core of the business. Essentially, if we didn't continue that revenue and that income, we couldn't do any of the new stuff over here. So I think any of you that work on mature products, go you. And the second thing I want to share is my colleague Brendan at Organa, ex-Spotify. He tells a really fantastic story. And it's around, I think it was at the last product tank. His story was around when he was a product manager at Spotify, he had the desktop program. And it was the legendary product. And then mobile took over, and all of a sudden their legendary product became the legacy back-end product. And Brendan tells a fantastic story about how to use storytelling to reposition how we think about the legacy or the legendary product. So I think there's real value in anyone that works on the core parts of the business. Go you.
Yeah. And if you're watching, if you're wondering, you can find that talk on the meetup page for ProductTank Sydney, and I believe you might even find it on the on YouTube under Mind the Product. Now we've got a couple of other ones. Elena has actually a great comment here. Lesson learned that I should be the first one asking the question and answering it for myself before jumping into anything. And I think that's actually a great insight, right? As I think anyone who works with product or who jumps into a project, yes, asking yourself the foundational questions of what problem you're trying to solve. I mean, I don't know a product manager in the world who wouldn't love that if the stakeholders around them would ask that question before they say, we need a button here. Yeah. Have you found any ways to sort of generally encourage that in people?
Elena, it's a fantastic insight, and I think about transitioning into becoming a company director is really tough. It's a very, very different mindset, and there are 9 people in the room. There are complex board papers that you have to get through, and there are very strict legal and financial obligations on us. And the conversation can go really quickly. And I find myself using product techniques at board level to gently probe around who are our customers, and because what are we trying to solve with this initiative? Because board directors will see the initiatives come up. We won't see the underlying problems. We will see a request for significant investment dollars to fund particular parts of the business. And so probing into areas, just using simple questions around, tell me more about who this is for, and tell me more about what problems do we think we're solving or needs that we're meeting by potentially doing this, funding this initiative over funding another initiative. So yeah, Elena, it's a fantastic thing, and we should bring ourselves back to asking those gentle questions all the time. Having said that, I have dived in like any good product person. You get a new job and you get thrown in the deep end and you get a backlog up the brass wazoo and off you go. It is hard to stop, but I'm mindful of just how important that is.
Awesome. Now, I think the stream of questions is starting to end, but we've got one that is classic. to be asked in the product space. So I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on that as well, Sandy. From Ashutosh, in your words, how do you define product manager, product owner, project manager, and does it really matter? I suppose I'll sort of tack on as a question.
It's one of those conversations that can go on forever because it really depends on so many things. But if I had to give a simplistic juxtaposition first between the product manager and the project manager, and by the way, I've been called a project manager, I think, for my first decade as a product person. I was a project manager. I still feel like project, we are defined by time, cost, and scope. And as product managers, we constrain ourselves with things around value. These are both important roles. Project managers are doing some really good things. Product managers are doing some really good things. But we have different constraints, or we're looking for different things as we move through the initiatives that we're working on. It is one of the single biggest problems I still see in business when I consult is project mentality, which leaks into how funding cycles work. It leaks into how procurement works. It leaks into how we think about CapEx and OpEx. It leaks everywhere. And the project approach is great for certain areas when things are complicated. It is not great when we're working on complexity, which often product people are in that space. So I do see them as very separate roles, often have to work very closely together. In terms of product manager and product owner, I remember when I first came across product owner because I'd been a product manager for 20 years. And I've seen this happen a few times. Our product managers are dead. It's all about the product owner. Our product management is dead. It's all about the service designer. Our product managers are dead. It's all about the UXer. And so I've had a lot of that over the years. And I think the older you get, you go, yeah, okay, well, we'll still come back to product managers being really critical in the business. But product owner and product manager, I was really thrown and was quite angry. I decided to blame Silicon Valley for this. Who the hell invented this term product owner? And then once I started working agile and really understanding its very pure, discrete definition within Scrum, it kind of started to make sense. So the biggest difference I see, if I take the purest definition, product managers need to see holistically. They need to be able to take a helicopter view and see right across the product. And that means that they need to reach over into marketing and be able to have product marketing conversations, whether it's about positioning or packaging or pricing. They need to be able to reach around into the dev and engineering where we're doing qual and quant-based user research and understanding development. They need to be seeing ops and seeing the impact of what's happening with the product through the customer experience center. They need to have a deep relationship with sales. Marty Kagan talks a lot about that when he says, if you're a product manager and you're not engaging with legal, with finance, with HR, with marketing, with sales, then you're kind of not doing your job. That's in the best form of a product manager. The product owner takes a very tactical and necessary, really important kind of more discrete role. So that kind of gives you a simplistic way to describe it. But Ashutosh, my last comment is product managers, I have seen thousands of different definitions, and it depends on what organization you are in, how big it is, whether the product's nascent or mature, what industry or sector you're in, how many other product talent or capability you have around you. For example, I've been a product manager in a small organization where I've had to do the entire product life cycle. I've been a product person in an enterprise where I've only had a piece of the pie, and it really will differ. And then the activities that you get involved with will fundamentally differ depending on a range of criteria. Bit of a long-winded way of saying it's bloody hard to give a pure definition.
Yeah, I almost think that what people have as an understanding of product owner and the whole agile training that's happening, it's almost diluting the understanding of what product managers actually can do. It feels like we're getting drawn from a strategy function into just being an execution function, right?
Yeah.
Where people think, yes, they can tell us to put a button there and we're just the people who will then run the team, when actually the origins of product management are in brand management, which is inherently very much customer focused and market focused and strategic.
Yeah, I think you make a really solid point, the tactical and strategic. And sometimes you're a product manager, you have to do both. Sometimes you might be more strategic and less tactical. So yeah, it's really important to kind of get a sense of the business and then figure out, okay, what type of product manager will I need to play? And the last thing I'll say to that is, to your point about brand management, product management is 60 years old now, Ben. It's been around, and I still occasionally come across organisations who've never heard of it. So we'll keep educating.
Me too. Keep flying the flag. Now we've got one last question. I think time for one last question, which is from Paru. Who's curious? I should put this up here. Are value and valuable the same thing? And if not, how do we help stakeholders to distinguish? Found that a curious question. Value and valuable.
So I'm wondering if we're coming back to, say, the IDEO Venn diagram of thinking about feasible, valuable, and desirable. Is that, Paru, where you're coming from? Just type a quick yes if that's where you're coming from, so I can juxtapose that to value. Although I'm having to think on the spot here, and it's a really good question. So if I think about IDEO's Venn diagram, we have feasible, and we have valuable, and we have desirable. And valuable may, in fact, I haven't really unpacked it. I wonder if they do think about it in the context of both user value and business value. I don't know, Ben, do you know if IDEO thinks that way? Because I fundamentally think about you have to have both. There is no point in creating only one over the other. For me, it's a combo, but interested in what you think, Ben.
Yeah, Paru is saying we're in the right vicinity of the question. I'm doing a little bit of guessing here. Like I guess the bottom line is there's lots of different types of value, right? Even customer value and business value, and who something is valuable for, and also sort of, different customer segments. You can, you make an improvement for one, but it's going to be detrimental to the other. I remember distinctly there was a situation when I worked in the Jira team at Atlassian where, we had this public backlog of ideas that people could vote on. Jira.atlassian.com, great resource, great reading. And so there were some things that customers said they really wanted. I think, I can't remember now, but a few features that were sort of micro level configurations that would get, someone who's very detail oriented really sort of to the next level. And of course, it would provide value to them. But in the grand scheme of things, was it valuable? Would it really be valuable across our whole customer base? And the decision we came back to a few times was, well, actually, it would make the product worse for so many other people and would make it less maintainable for us. And so we sort of had to distinguish between, different types of value and different like different customer segments, and us and the organization and the engineers and who would want to work on that. And so you can apply a very holistic mindset there. I would encourage that, right? Value isn't one dimensional. It really is. It can be a complex equation, and no matter how much data and how many metrics we use, it can still be very difficult to say. In fact, sometimes I would say that product managers, their success is often more related to the things they say no to than the things they say yes to, and so it's sometimes very hard to tell whether what you've done actually provided the most value, or whether it was just somewhere up there.
It reminds me of one of my favourite videos ever is Des Traynor, and he's the founder and CEO of Intercom. So you can Google Des and then Traynor, Traynor, Aynor, and he teaches in 7 minutes the art of saying no, and he tells his experience of kind of what happens when product people have to say no all the time. It's really worth a watch, and it's fun and it's funny because he's Irish, and it can be useful as a video I've showed to a lot of stakeholders over the years. But the other thing I want to say to that is we do get labelled as saying no, and then I read someone wrote some time ago, oh, no, we don't say no, we relentlessly prioritise a lot. And we pop things into our parking lot.
Yes, the good old, we'll put it on the backlog, we just won't tell you which one.
Yes.
Alrighty, well, Sandy, it has been such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to share this talk with a few other people. And I know the Product Tank talks, they always get a few hundred views within the next few days. So thanks everyone for watching, whether you were live or whether you're watching afterwards. And the only thing to say now is come back soon. We've got a few more events for the rest of the year coming up. If you want to create positive change, have something to share, want to get involved, or have anything else for the community, ping me anytime, and let's make it happen. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening or great morning, wherever you are, and we will hopefully see you soon.